Welcome back. So we know that this thing called the JavaScript engine takes our written JavaScript code and does some magic to tell the computer to do what we want it to do. So what's happening inside of this engine? And here's the tricky part. As we know, this engine can be built by anybody. Yes, that means you can build your own JavaScript engine. But it's a lot of work. And at the end of the day, it's just a program. And the V8 engine, which is the most popular, most common, and some would say the fastest JavaScript engine that the Chrome browser and Node.js uses, which we'll talk about later on, this engine is written in C++, a low-level programming language. But let's see what's actually happening inside here. Inside this engine, it looks something like this. We give it a JavaScript file. And first it does something called lexical analysis, which breaks the code into something called tokens to identify their meaning so that we know what the code is trying to do. And these tokens are formed into what we call an AST, that is an abstract syntax tree. So we parse the code, that is, we try and figure out how the text is divided up based on keywords from JavaScript, and it gets formed into this tree-like structure called abstract syntax tree. And there's a fun little tool online that you can use to demo this. If we go to astexplorer.net, it'll show you how this abstract syntax tree looks like. And you have a bit of code here, and as you can see, you can look at it in JSON format, or you can use the tree. And it breaks down the program into different things that are happening. We have a variable declaration, a declarator, and although this may look like gibberish right now to you, this allows the engine to understand what's going on in the program, or at least break things down one by one. And once in this form, it goes through something called an interpreter, profiler, compiler, and we get some sort of code, which we're going to talk about later on. And this whole engine is going to spit out some code that our CPU on our computers is going to understand to give it instructions. And you can think of this whole process, again, which we're going to talk about in more detail coming up, as something like this. We can create our own JavaScript engine by saying function, and let's say JS engine function that takes in some code, and this code is going to return for us, let's say code.split, and we'll use some regex here just to split up our code. And now if I write some code here, let's say JS engine, and we give it our code, which will be a string that says variable a equals to 5. Look at that. We've created a simple engine. I know, there's a lot more complexities to it than that. But that's what it's doing. We're giving it a piece of code, which just gets stringified. And then it tries and breaks things down into different parts so that maybe in this function, we can say, if you see variable keyword, that means whatever comes after it is a variable that we're going to assign, and so on and so forth. But you might see a problem here.